Hello there, this is Jennifer from Focus Training. Here we go, the Focus book. I'm talking about the 3 principles of focus training plus connection, and this video is about the 3rd principle, which is absolutely mind-blowing and touches on quantum mechanics, but don't be scared because it's really important and actually quite simple. I'm just going to see, can you still say yes, you can, right. Okay, so the 3rd principle is, oh, by the way, if you haven't listened to the 1st principle, the 2nd principle and connection, please do look at them first. Otherwise you won't understand this. So, which is a shame because it's really important. So the 1st principle was that you are important because you are matter, you're a thing, you have a form, you are in this universe of things, okay? And in this universe of things, there's space and time because you need space if there are things. Otherwise, everything would be a blob. So you need space. So things have their own identity, like the lamp here is separate from the book, which is separate from me. So there is space between us. And where there is space and where there is matter, there is also time because that's how it works. All right? Good. So that's the 1st principle. Everything you do counts because we are living in a place where being a form counts and is important. It's really important. Everything you do is having an effect on everything else. Don't let governments, the education system, politics, etc. fool you into thinking that you are powerless because you're not. All right? If we sit there and wait for them to do something and we are sitting doing nothing, we are powerless, not because they are powerful, but because we're doing nothing. We're powerless because we do nothing, not because other people are more powerful. That's really important, all right? Anyway, so 1st principle, we are here. You're important, everything you do counts. 2nd principle, there are places you can visit within yourself, and we looked at 2 of them. One is the mind, one is the real you hidden deeply in your body, which we could call who you are. The 3rd thing is everything you become aware of, everything you give your attention to becomes alive and real. In other words, it becomes bigger. So you have an ability as a human being to make something alive and real and then big. Everyone can do that. And it's massive. Right? I'm going to slightly go on a slight tangent and say that's why when you're in a computer, it only becomes real when you actually start playing with it. So if you leave a computer alone, if you turn it off, or even if it's on but you ignore it, it's not alive and real. It's only when you engage with it, it becomes alive and real. And okay, sometimes there are people at the other end of it that are alive and real, and you might think, oh, that computer is enabling me to communicate with something alive and real. It's not making that alive and real. And you'd be right. But that's not all the time, is it? Sometimes you are on a computer playing with things that aren't alive and real, but your mind thinks they are because of how they're interacting with you. One good example is a chatbot. Now, look at the connection video if you want to think more about that, because I talk about that. Anyway, so that's a good example of how what we give our attention to becomes alive and real to us. And I have done another video about this, which I might put somewhere near here, which is also what I am not saying. What I am not saying is if we don't notice things, they do not exist. If we don't notice things, yes, they do exist. They do exist. It's just in your present reality, they are not alive and real and big. Okay? But they are there. And if we don't look at them and they are there and they become more urgent, like, I don't know, if there's a car coming when you're crossing the road, if we don't start to notice as they are coming near us, obviously we're going to have a very bad consequence and we're going to get run over, right? So things are there if you don't notice them, if you don't give your attention to them, right? But so you've got to be aware of stuff, and when you are aware of stuff, it becomes alive and real. So I start to look around as I'm crossing the road and I see the car, so therefore I'm aware of it, I'm giving it my attention, and I'm thinking, right, better not cross the road because I'll get run over. Yeah, my experience of the car will get bigger if I walk in front of it. It will run me over. Okay, so when we give our attention to something, it becomes alive and real and bigger. And the practical element of the focus training shows you that. So I'm not going to talk about that too much. It's true, believe me, we can prove it. Okay. What I do want to talk about though is how this happens. So if you can imagine, right, as it says, you need to watch the first 3 videos before this on the first principle, second principle, and connection. So if we are visiting our mind, and we're thinking, right? Or if we have a clear mind and we're using our imagination and we have an idea. Lots of ideas can exist at the same time. I can have an idea about going to the shops. I can have an idea about getting in my car. I can have an idea about having a shower. I can have an idea about doing some gardening. All these things exist. And there's a name for that. There's a long word for that. Let me just see. In quantum mechanics, which is called superposition of multiple possible states. All right? A superposition of multiple possible states. So when we have ideas, or if we're in our mind, lots of things can exist at the same time in our mind. They're not real, they're not matter, they're not real, right? Okay, we got that. So what we do as human beings, and this is so important once you realise this, we have all these ideas. If we're not using our imagination and we haven't got a clear mind, we may have thoughts which are similar in the sense that they're still in the mind, all right? They've got a different nature, but they are still in the mind. They are thoughts. So we have thoughts, which kind of come anyway. We have ideas, which is more about our imagination and a clear mind. And they exist in what we can call, in quantum mechanics, a superposition state of multiple states, because lots of different states can exist at the same time. Now, it's not until you, and again, back to what we were saying about you, the real you here, picks one of these, that it becomes an action. And this loops right back to the first principle, where everything you do counts, right? So when you pick one of these, let's call them possibilities, potentials, and you pick one from the arena of the mind, you pick one and you give it your attention. You give it your attention. And once you start to focus on it and give it your attention, you will probably act on it. And it becomes alive and real. And if you keep doing the same thing with it, it will become bigger. What you've done in quantum mechanic terms is you've done what's called wave function collapse. Okay? I'm just going to read this out to you because it's quite handy, right? But it shows you how powerful people are, right? It shows you how powerful people are, because everything you give your attention to becomes alive and real. That's the principle. Everything you give your attention to comes alive and real. And then if you do it more and more, it becomes bigger and bigger. Why is this? We can use quantum mechanics to explain it. And let's imagine in our mind, we've got all these ideas that can be opposite to each other, but they still exist. We then choose one. We are the observer. We choose one. The real you chooses one, understands it, actions it, turns it into a form, turns it into a thing, turns it into an action. So we have used our human ability to turn something, nothing, to turn nothing, there's nothing here, we've had an idea, and then we start to turn it into something. We're turning nothing into something, we're turning nothing into a form, we're turning nothing into an object. We're magicians, we're alchemists, we're making something out of nothing. Quantum mechanics can explain this. I'll read this out. Wave function collapse is the process in quantum mechanics where a system, initially in a superposition of multiple possible states, that means we have ideas and stuff, it all exists. We can't see it, but it's there because we're experiencing it as an idea or as a thought. So that's called wave function collapse is the process in quantum mechanics where a system, your ideas, your thoughts, initially in a superposition of multiple possible states. So you could be thinking all contradictory things at the same time. You could be having ideas, shall I go to the shop? Shall I stay here? Shall I have a shower? Okay, so initially that's the situation. Suddenly it's found to be in a single definite state after a measurement is made. The measurement is you deciding what to do with that thought or idea. You could decide to ignore it, in which case it would disappear. But if you decide to focus on it, you've made a measurement, you've made a judgment, you've acknowledged it, and you've thought, I'm going to pick that one. Then in quantum mechanics, the wave function collapses. What that means is all these waves of ideas and things stops being a wave and suddenly becomes a thing because you've actioned it. You've observed it, you've picked one, you've observed it, you've seen it, and now you're going to do something, and then it becomes a form. In quantum mechanics, in experiments, you don't even have to do that. You just have to watch it and it becomes something. You don't even have to, you just have to see it. You just have to observe it. I'm slightly stretching it here by saying as human beings, we can observe all this stuff, but then we have to choose one and then do an action. Then the wave function collapses and then it becomes something. And you've created something out of a nothing. Okay, let me carry on. This collapse, this situation where something that had multitude possibilities becomes one thing. So do I go to the shop? Do I not go to the shop? Becomes one thing. I do go to the shop. That's called the collapse. This collapse is triggered by the interaction of the quantum system with its environment, including a measuring apparatus. So the environment is you, basically, you deciding to do something with this idea or thought, or not, including a measuring apparatus, causing the system to choose a single classical outcome from all its potential possibilities. So there we are. That's how we work, explained by quantum mechanics, and it is fascinating. That's I could talk for hours about that, but all the science is out there. Thank goodness. It's nice because when I first started to do this work, there was no science really about all this, but now there is. It's called quantum mechanics. So that's why when we become aware of something, it becomes alive and real. This is not woohoo rubbish. It is quantum mechanics. Okay, so back to this. So what we become aware of, what we focus on, becomes alive and real. It has more of a effect on us in life and profoundly directs our experience of life. And the reason why we need to master our focus is because focus is what steers your attention. So if we master the focus, hence focus training, we master our attention. If we master our attention, we then master what we're making alive and real around us. That then defines our experience of life, and the practical or focus training circles proves that if many people do this together, you can then start to change the world. Actually, because people have come together, mastering their focus, they're focusing on one thing and they're making it alive and real in the real world, so they're changing reality. And that's what it's all about. So let's start changing reality in a good way to create a better world for everyone, because we can do this because we're human beings and now we know how to do it. Thank you very much.